From CSST, he worked in JP Morgan as a senior financial specialist. Now working as an integration consultant at OMGO, we have Benedick Garcia.
Siguro I'm gonna start with opening up with something na medyo personal, which I don't really tell my employers. I'm the bad example of CCS. I graduated with a 1.85 CGPA. Ganun ako kabaksak. Meron akong isang course, or actually tatlo sila, na inulit ko ng 4 na beses. It's a record. I'm not counting, I just know that it's just bad. Alright, so one of the reasons that motivated me to come to this discussion is, one, I've gotten out of the university for about 10 years now. I was CATCH2T4, but I actually got out of CCS December 2005. So, ang dami kong mga terms sa in-extra. Aside from that, looking back into my career, the things that I've done, I've hated CCS while I was there. But after that I got out, I realized ang daming binigay sa akin ng Gokul. Yes, we still call it Gokul during our time. Alright, tapos of course, ang aking Yossi session ay lagi nasa Agno. Sa Agno ako lumakas mag-Yossi. Kasi 10-minute break in between the courses, it was actually the perfect training for me to smoke while I was working in a call center. Yes, my first job was in a call center. So, here's the thing. Before I start talking about why you guys would want to stay about CCS, there are a few things that I want to do. Para bang konting ground rules. Right now, you guys are freshmen. So that it's not that I'm talking down to you guys, but at this point, you don't know what you don't know. Honestly, I mean, when they asked her, there were a lot of questions that would have been nice if you were to ask her, pero hindi pa lumitaw yung mga magagandang questions. So, I'm gonna say that it's normal. Your priorities when you're in grade school are different when you get to high school. It's different when you're in college, and it's gonna be different when you're in the middle or early or late in your career. Of course, when you retire, iba na yung priorities nyo. So, that's the first thing. Second, the world, or at least Manila, is changing. Ang daming opportunities available sa Manila na ngayon na hindi available during sa time namin when we graduated 2004-2005, and it was not available to your older professors when they graduated, what, 95, year 1990? And a lot of it is because of BPO. I don't mean the call center BPO, but really the IT BPO. In the BPO industry, there's this big division. They call it voice and non-voice. The voice part would be where people say, hi, hello, how can I help you with your problem over the phone. The bigger part of it would be the non-voice. Non-voice would be, part of it is programming, multimedia, all of those nice stuff, where you don't really talk on the phone, but you're handed over jobs. And those jobs actually pay you well. It's gonna pay more when you're working onshore, but guess what? Those jobs from onshore are moving into places like Manila. It's not that we're cheap, it's just that we do it quite well. And our biggest competition there is really places like India, Singapore, Hong Kong, and all of those places. Pero iba yung trabaho ng Pinoy, I could tell you that. And we could really relate well with foreigners, whether they be from Australia, from the US, from UK, anywhere. So, I'm thinking that the biggest problem that you have right now is choosing to stay or choosing to go. I'm gonna be open. It is actually a good time to make that decision. Whether you shift out now or you stay. But I'm gonna be the guy who tells you, the guy who has been baksak-baksak, na staying in CCS would actually give you a lot. Believe me, regardless of whether you want to shift, like in my case, I want to go into finance. And ewan ko na lang kung mayabang, pero finance is so CCO after on-site. Really it is. And the earlier question, does life get easier after you graduate from ComSci? Of course it does. Nobody, or at least nothing is as hard as my ComSci training. I've been telling some of the guys there, medyo napapangura pa lang ako eh. Kaya I'm actually censoring myself, otherwise you're gonna hear me say a lot of curse words. The thing is, when you are in a marquee program of any university, so in Lasal, I could think of, syempre, ComSci, doon ako nanggaling. There are other programs, pero hindi ko napapanggitin. In Ateneo, there's management engineering. So if you got friends in management engineering, guess what? They're feeling the same way. In UP, there's business admin and accountancy. It's a 5-year degree. They're going through the same thing. And the reason for that is any marquee program of a university, a lot of attention really is paid into it. And at the same time, your curriculum is really highly tailored for a successful career. Okay, now we move on to the career part. Konting discarding moves. When you graduate out of ComSci, it's gonna open up doors. Really. I mean, I tell you, I don't even mention my grades. I just tell that I'm ComSci Lasal. I'm in for an interview. It works, it works. It really does open doors. Now, here's the thing. When you get into any organization, it's gonna be up to you to prove whether you belong to that organization or you don't. I'm one of the guys who doesn't want to program anymore. It's a bad choice. Because really, the money is in programming. If you're in here for the money, like I heard someone who say money, then you gotta love programming. Or at least know a bit of programming. May mga jobs out there na medyo petics. Like I'm gonna say for your level, medyo petics siya. Pero getting there is actually easy. If you have DLSU, CCS, undergraduate degree. There are other jobs out there na walang programming. Like, I actually like Diane's career. She got into PM right away. Becoming a project manager is one of the things that you want to do either later in your career. But if you have the opportunity to have a project management role, a business administrator role, these are relatively high-profile roles. You get into the industry and you have to do little programming. You have to know about it. You need to have a background about it because you need to check the work of the other programmers. And the thing is, you're being offered that opportunity largely because of your potential. When you graduate from DLSU CCS, really you have all the potential in the world. Because you've gone through a lot. The same thing happens when you graduate from those other marquee, how shall I say it, marquee degrees from other universities. Me being the sad story, I had to climb up little by little. So from call center work to going into banking, so on and so forth, medyo mayabang ako, so I could say that, you know what, that job I can do, but they're just not offering up to me. It's me, my issues, my emotions. But having good grades, it's going to be so easy for you to present you and your profile saying that, you know what, I could actually do that job. And chances are, because I have this good background, you're going to believe me. And sure enough, when you're talking to a company, there are two things that they are looking into. Your potential is one. And believe me, when you graduate from here, it's all about potential. Because you haven't really proven anything yet. On codes, haven't proven. Second thing that they're going to look at is the experience. So for some people, whatever your background is, as long as you have the experience, that's the proof. That's the harder, more concrete example that you can actually do something good. The thing is, the CCS program, in my opinion, at least in my time, if you're going to examine it, like what Diane was saying, when it comes to your course degree, believe it or not, that's actually a career path. A lot of people who don't have a ComSci background, who realize that there's money in programming, goes through each and every subject as a job. And then they finally get into the juicy positions after what, 5 years, 10 years of doing the job? But if you graduate in ComSci, you actually are offered those positions early. Yeah. And Okay, money talk, maybe to make it more concrete. One of my batchmates, he got into SAP after graduating. Any programming work, mababa ang sahod for the first 1, 2, and maybe even third year. So I'm guessing the sahod nyo na is around what? 20. Kasi yung pumunta ako sa isang company na nag-offer ng SAP, 20 rin yung offer sa entry level. But after a year, he was being offered 50 because he was being pirated. Ganun kabilis yung taas ng sahod pag programmer. And it's gonna get even bigger when you are exposed to other opportunities abroad. Before you go abroad, if you do have the opportunity to go abroad, yeah, go for it. But if you don't have that opportunity, again, stay here, do some programming work, and then in a few years' time, when you have the experience, doors are gonna open. There are other marquee positions in Manila, in the regions, that actually offer more. I've heard of an entry-level position that is 80,000 for a freshman. But that belongs, sorry to say, for the people who are not just top of their class, but top of Manila. That means you're competing for the guys or the best guys in the other universities. Yes, ganun siya pinag-aagawa. Pero, you know what, it doesn't really matter what your first job is. The choices that you make or how you handle your career would really push you or propel you forward later in your life. But let's get back down, kasi that's my favorite subject. I actually coach a lot of people on how to do better in their careers. Let's bring it back to CCS. What are the things that you can do right now to, make life easier later? Because honestly, ingat ako sa mga classmates ko na nagseryoso sa comsci when they graduated. Like, one of them, I'm sorry, mayabang ako, but in high school, I was one of the smart kids. When I got into CCS, I realized that I wasn't that smart. The second thing is, when I got into CCS, it wasn't really my choice. Just like what you were saying, it was actually an option that my parents picked out for me because there are a lot of jobs in Boston. And there still is, there's actually more. So, me personally, my struggle with CCS was a lot of it emotional, motivational, blah, blah, blah. But you really have to get over that. And the reason is, whether you face it right now while you're young, you're gonna face the same issues later on when you're older. And I don't mean like when you're 20, when you have your first job. I mean when like you're 40 or 50. If you don't resolve your issues right away, they're just gonna come back in another state or form. So whatever your reason is, whatever your problem is, face it right away. Second thing, whether you stay or whether you go, success could be found anywhere, regardless of your degree. But it's going to be so much easier if you stay in CCS. What else can I talk to you guys about? Questions? By the way, I promised Dan that I'm going to talk for some time, maximum 30 minutes, and then I'm going to bring her back to the floor so that we can do an open forum. I mean, I want to hear more about, or at least I want to hear more from you guys, how you're feeling right now. I understand that each one of you have your own issues and your own decisions. That's actually another advice that I want to give. Regardless if you stay or you go, make it your decision so that you can own the success and at the same time, well, let's face it, if the decision backfires, you can own that mistake. Question?
Yung 20,000, 3,000 per week or per month?
Per month. Per week meron, but you have to go to another country. Other questions? Teka. At this point, I was thinking, I don't know, kasi during my time, iba yung tinitingnan ko nung freshman ako. Have you guys thought of careers or the jobs that you want to do? Not yet? Okay. Some people yes, some people no. It's a good practice that you start looking into that because you have to realize Gokong Way is about 4 to hopefully just 4 years. If you extend, okay lang. Pero start looking into that because you want to know or have an idea of what you want to do after Gokong Way. The easy part about being in a university is that you still get an allowance from your parents. The financial stuff is taken care of. But when you start working, it will be great if you're earning high, but it will suck if you're earning low. Pag entry level ka sa isang trabaho, tapos ang ino-offer sa'yo is a little above minimum wage, you're gonna hate working. That's just it. I'm guessing that they actually have a great job because if you get to travel, that means you have some budget. Yeah, piece of it, right? That's actually one of the great things about Manila right now. We have a budget airline that could take us mostly anywhere. When we graduated, wala. And ako, hindi ako natuto magtipid. If you can learn the virtue of actually saving up right now, then living later on would be easier. Like the solid rule is about 80-20. Live on 80% of your salary and then 20% savings. If you can do more than 20, that is great. But try to target 80-20. Kung masyado malaki yung 20 kasi maliit yung sahod mo, kung bakit maliit yung sahod mo, ewan ko siguro hindi ka nag-graduate ng CCS. Sige, live out of 5%, 1% and then just build it up later on. What else? Oh yeah, I was talking about this artist. So, here's the thing, right? Career advice. Regardless of your grades, whether it be good or bad, if you want the money, do programming for about 5 years maximum. Pero kahit na 2-3 years pa lang, ang bilis ng taas ng sahod mo. At isa pa, you can even transfer to another company. A lot of companies right now are less sensitive about technical people who are moving a lot. Me, I'm going into finance, or at least I've transferred into finance. And it's actually biting me somewhere. Na they see me as a person who's just moving from one job to another, from one company to another. Pero mas malawag sila for technical people. Because they understand that for talent to actually develop more, you need to constantly have challenges. And at the same time, they can't really afford you. Because, well, ganun kataas yung sahod mo. A lot of the hard choices that my batchmates are making is either staying in a company as a permanent employee or just taking a contractual job. For the people who took contractual jobs, they're actually doing okay. Yung nga lang, they do realize the risk. Na for one period of time, about 3-6 months, meron silang ginagawa. Tapos baka another months o kaya years, baka mawalan sila ng trabaho. But that's a problem that you will face later on. My advice, dun muna kayo sa permanent employment for a few years, tsaka na lang kayo maging contractual later on when you can actually command salaries north of 100,000 per month. What else? Yan, survey. This is actually important for you. Sino yung may love life o kaya sino yung may friends man lang? Kung wala kayong friends, wala kayong love life, regardless kung saan kayo pumunta, life is sad. Okay? Like me, I have a Rambo mentality. Na tipo bang kahit na ako lang mag-isa, one-man army, I'm doing okay. Don't do that. The thing is, I mean, I'm the kind of person who likes to be alone and I cherish that moment. But for a lot of people, they just can't stand being alone. So, self-knowledge, please. Realize who you are, what you want, and then just go for it. Other questions? Other questions? Maybe I could reverse the situation. Let me ask about your concerns. So aside from moving from CCS to another course, what else are you guys thinking about? I mean, relative to Comsci, relative to the program. Is it hard? Yeah, it is. What else? No, go. Good question. How did I cope up dun sa aking pagbabaksak? There really was no option for me. I was that guy who wanted to move into another college, but I didn't have that option kasi sobrang baba ng grades ko. So I just stuck it out in comp-sci. No choice, man. But I do realize now that kung nagseryoso ako, I didn't need to repeat that subject 4 times. That's just it. My problem back then was I wasn't facing my own issues. But if I did, life would have been so much easier. So, ganun lang. Laban lang. I tried to cope up with beer, it didn't work. Before that, mas payat ako nun. Like, I had the heart-shaped face. Pero ngayon, pag i-compare mo yung aking 2x2, pagka-graduate ko, pati ngayon, parang iba na yun. What else? Good.
Ano po, pagkatapos po diplomatic, ano po ba silang nagawin? Magmasteran or mag-work?
Yeah, like I didn't remember. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Going into a master's degree is actually great. I would recommend it. But one thing about a master's degree is that you want to be the guy or girl contributing to the discussion. I mean, the romantic idea of a graduate degree is that you're not just learning from the professors. You're actually learning more from the people that you have class with, right? So, I do recommend about 2, 3, 5 years experience. Siguro to sa mga nakakapansin, I've been saying 2, 3 years, 5 years experience. That's actually a critical number because that determines the early part of your career. Think of your career, at least my own model for it is that it's divided into brackets of 10 years. First 10 year would be your early career, next 10 years would be your middle career, and then the last years of it would be your senior career. So in the middle of your early career, it would be great if you would have a graduate degree. Number 1 for credentials, and as credentials, babalik na naman kayo dun sa state na potential. So imagine, nag-graduate na kayo ng COMSI with the high potential of doing something great. That gets you your first job. Now, if you get a graduate degree, it opens up the door for you for more opportunities. Because right now, or at least at that point, hindi na graduate studies yung pinag-uusap, ay hindi na bachelor's degree pinag-uusapan, graduate problems yung pinag-uusapan. So, the people who are ahead of me, about 5 years ahead, kasama ko siya sa, well, I'm gonna mention the school. He was from Ateneo. I don't know what his undergraduate was. He was older than me 5 years, and then he took an MBA from Ateneo. Ngayon, so, but I'm about 31, he's what, 35 or late 30s? Chief Operating Officer na siya. It sucks, but hey, that's his choices. And we also came from the same company. We both came from Italy. So kudos to him. Me, I'm playing catch-up. I'm gonna go into my graduate degree hopefully next year. I'm gonna take up financial engineering. Yun na may interest ko.